Welcome back to another episode of She Thrives. I'm Camille,
Heather.
and we are here to talk to you about imposter syndrome.
Oh, imposter syndrome. Camille, this topic is so close to my heart.
Yeah. I think anybody who is goal oriented is very familiar with imposter syndrome. Anybody who has something they want to do, they want to try something new, has a goal, ambition, it's pretty universal experience.
Well, it's important to have. We'll get into that. Imposter syndrome is believing you can't do something. It's believing that, oh, I'm not going to bother. I would never be good enough. Just don't possess what it takes to be accomplished in XYZ.
Or I don't belong in this arena. Only people that are so much more advanced or more privileged or
Yeah.
more beautiful or more educated or more skinny or whatever.
I feel like women feel this probably junior high. I don't know. Maybe it's now elementary. We start feeling it. Like I noticed my third grader starting to worry about branding. Well, I only wear this brand now because she's trying to fit into what she thinks or, be good enough or measure up to what she thinks she is going to school among. And, we're not affluent neighborhood. We're just middle class, regular. But it's already starting in third grade. I
Mm-hmm.
remember for me, it was probably about eighth grade. It needed to be Jordache jeans or nothing.
Esprit has to be a spree. Now I remember it was limited to when I was her age. That's where all the little girls wanted to shop was the limited to.
Oh, yes. I was too big for that. I was too chubby for that. So that was never a place I could go.
Aw.
That's all right. That's that's been dealt with, but we'll bring that up in another podcast.
Yeah.
Chloe's was Justice. Oh my gosh. Single mom.
Yeah.
Like, I will only wear Justice because she wanted to fit where she thought she was supposed to be. And for myself, imposter syndrome lives in where I am in my family, where I am in my profession, where I am in my neighborhood. It's a lot of places for me. How about you?
Well, I've experienced imposter syndrome with work, graduating from life coaching school at age 24. I'm only 24. What can I offer people that all my clients were older than me, right?
Yeah.
I basically told them I've been through a lot of life at this young age. So I have these specific skills so I can help you in these areas kind of thing. But you still have those thoughts that show up. Should I be here? Do I deserve to be here? Am I
Yeah.
worthy to be here? That kind of thing.
Yeah. That was graduating graduate school. And they handed me my associate license and they're like, congratulations. And I was like, in my mind, I'm a complete fraud. Are you kidding me? I
How did they let me get away with this?
That's like, oh my gosh. And to be fair, I had a 3.9 grade point average. It's not like I was failing or
Yeah.
anything. Um, it was so intense for me that I called a professor about a week later and I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this. I'm a fraud. Why did you pass me? And he just kind of chuckled and laughed and he's like, were you asleep during the part on imposter syndrome? And I was
Hmm.
like, hyperventilating and crying. And he's like, okay, 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 calm down. Every good therapist goes through this. And I was like, no, wait, what? Huh? What do you mean? What do you mean good therapist? And he goes, well, imposter syndrome's healthy. Boy, talk about making my mind swirl. Imposter
What?
syndrome's healthy. So yes, when you did sell your boutique and you jumped right back into coaching, like, tell us more about that. Like, what were the words you said to yourself? What was the conversation in your head that was like, no, no, no?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's funny because my first job, my career outside of college was life coaching. That was my sole focus. And I did it for 2 years. And then my kids started to come. And I realized pretty early on that it was very difficult to be on a life coaching call with a client while even if I have a schedule for my babies, like, do they always stick to their schedule? They're not robots, right?
Yeah.
So my daughter's crying in her crib and I still have 20 minutes left with my in my session and I'm like, what do I do? You know what I mean? So
Yes.
it didn't really work for me to have and at the time we couldn't really afford a babysitter. My husband was it was the recession and he was looking for a job and sometimes he could watch her, but he was working a little bit, so it's just like it wasn't fitting into my life when I started having kids. So I just kind of got back into, I've always been into the space of self improvement. And I applied a lot of those things while I was running an online clothing store that I started. But I got back into the coaching space a few years ago and officially sold the clothing business just last month. So then my new focus is now that my youngest is in preschool, because I've had 5 kids and my baby's in preschool and I have a few hours a day, is like, I'm going to dedicate this time to coaching.
Yeah.
And there was imposter syndrome. What the heck? This is my passion, my first, career. And imposter syndrome's telling me, you know, are you really a life coach though? I mean, um, what gives you the right to call yourself that? And it's been 16 years since I graduated from life coaching school. And I've self published 3 books now, which
Yeah.
people are like, oh, wow, how did you do that? That must be so hard. And I'm still having imposter syndrome being like, are you sure? Because I think that maybe like you're trying to be something you're not. This is like the epitome of who I am.
Yeah. Every time I have a new client that starts, I get the butterflies like, can I do this? I'm going on 10 years of doing this from the very first session I ever did, which that poor client that was in school. And, oh, good thing it was free.
Yeah,
Anyways,
guinea pig.
right? They knew what they were getting into. It was fine.
Yeah.
But like this many years in, I freeze. I get that like, you know, maybe they won't show up and that's okay. Or what if I don't know how to help them? And then like you do a lot of self-talk and just I always like to remember imposter syndrome is healthy. It keeps me growing. That's why it's healthy. The right amount of imposter syndrome though, not crippling, I can't leave my house because I'm not able to do anything. Or we don't want to be on the other side of it where it's like, "Ugh, I know it all. This
Oh, yeah.
client's lucky to have me," right? Like
Yeah.
you have to find that balance. And I've been told by other people that, in my sphere of influence that a healthy imposter syndrome will keep you constantly growing. And, I'm required to do continuing education every 2 years, 40 hours. I far exceed that by easily 100 hours
Because it's like a hobby of yours to brush up on
yes,
this stuff. You're reading it. I know, I consume it too.
yeah, yes. And like, I always have way too many CEs and I'm like, well, which ones do I apply? And they don't roll over. I'm like, whatever, because I want to grow and grow and grow in my field. And I kind of always question like those that don't, do they see it? Do they see the ego set in versus the healthy imposter syndrome pushing them along? Because we want to be in growth mindset. We don't want to be in fixed.
Yeah.
But so much imposter syndrome can make you crippled and not move at all. And that's dangerous.
Right.
That's where I
Right.
was as a mother. My first time being a mother, oh man, it wasn't easy to get pregnant. And then I was pregnant, and then I was like in freeze mode for 9 months. And then this child comes, and I'm like, what have I done? I don't know what's happening. I don't know
What
what
do
to
I
do.
do with this baby?
I had never changed a diaper until
I was
hers.
going to ask you if you babysat when you were younger, because I
Never.
was like the neighborhood babysitter.
Nope. Never. Never. No diapers. None. Zero. None.
It's
So
like my
complete.
brother when he had his first kid, but now he's done hundreds of diapers.
That's good. It's a good
Yeah.
brother.
Yeah.
So, how do we know if we're in a safe place of imposter syndrome? What does that look like? What does that feel like? How do you push your clients through the crippling imposter to the healthy imposter?
Well, so my model in coaching is you take the thought like, I don't belong here, and you ask questions to it. You challenge it because the basis of coaching is that we attach to beliefs or distortions. We talked about distortions on the podcast last episode. We believe distortions or we attach to beliefs that are not true. So we need to do some investigation to see what's actually true. So you take that original thought, like, I don't belong here. And you ask some questions like, is that really true?
That sounds a lot like when you move back to California.
Yeah. Oh, yes, definitely.
Yeah.
I'll get there in a second. So you're like, is it true I don't belong here? um, Instead of saying, why don't I believe that? Like, we don't go down that rabbit hole any further. You say, how do I act or how do I feel when I believe that I don't belong here? And
Yeah.
then you really kind of sit with that. Like, how is this affecting me? How is it impacting me? And then you can go to the opposite of how would I be if I didn't have this thought? If I didn't have this mental block, how would I behave or feel differently? What would I do differently? And then you take the original thought, I don't belong here. And then you flip it to, I do belong here. And you list reasons why. So that when you have the thought, I don't belong here, you can say, well, that's an interesting thought, but I don't have to believe it because I have 1, 2, and 3 reasons why I do, just so that you can kind of play with it. Because you don't want to get thoughts like that and be like afraid of them or angry. You want to be able to do that dance because that's life. We're going to have lots of thoughts that come and we have to decide, is this true? Is this a healthy thought? So you go through it and you ask the questions.
Don't believe everything you think.
Right. And then eventually you can just get that thought and go straight to the, okay, this isn't true. I already know that. So what are my reasons why it's not true? And then you just push forward and, you know, we want to have a healthy dose of humility, obviously.
Yeah.
Like you said, growth mindset. We don't want to think we know everything, but we also need to believe every thought that comes into our heads that makes us feel like we're not enough, because that's not cool. And that's
Yeah.
not true.
It's common. I feel like culture does that to women.
Mm-hmm.
Not thin enough,
Mm-hmm.
not strong enough, not
You're not a
needy.
good enough mom because you're not momming the way she's momming. She's making recipes from scratch and she's wearing really pretty peasant dresses every day on Instagram. And her
They're all mad.
children are thriving with their wooden toys. I mean, you're not
Yeah.
doing it the right way.
Yeah. My kids are never pressed and dressed and everything at the same time as I am. Like I don't have a family photo because it just can't happen. There's too much chaos. And that is a big imposter syndrome for me is like, and it's also comparison trap, which we'll get into it another episode, but it's like, I, I must be doing it wrong because I can't do what I see. And that kind of talk, it can really slow you down as a person in your growth and your self-esteem and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I remember moving to the Midwest. I'm from Utah. I'm not Midwestern. My husband's Midwestern. He lived here for 20 some odd years before he lived in Utah. And it's so different here. But I've been able to acclimate because I've reminded myself, I didn't grow up here. It's okay that I didn't grow up here. People will like me anyway, or, it's very different from where I did grow up. But it's scary to like transplant yourself somewhere, like let the wind carry you and you end up somewhere.
Yeah. For me as a parent, I've had imposter syndrome when I'm, with teenagers dealing with situations where I'm like, these are hard situations. Am I even equipped to be here? When sometimes I just feel like I'm still 20 something figuring stuff out. Like, sometimes you just doubt yourself. Like, do I have what it takes? Am I equipped to handle these different challenges with different kids that come up? Right. And
I've always said I'm really glad I went back to school later, in my 30s, because then I'm old enough for people to take me seriously.
yes, and that's funny that I had imposter syndrome at all coming back into coaching, and putting more hours in, because I don't look like when I was 24, I mean, I looked like I was 24, and I covered them up for the podcast, a little spray because it's been a while since I've covered my grays, but I don't look 24 anymore. And I've had 5 kids and I'm in my 40s, and I can say that I've been doing this for, 16 years, and that makes it a little bit easier. But that doesn't mean that imposter syndrome still doesn't rear its ugly head, right?
Yes. Yes. It
Nobody's
does.
immune to it. Well, I can't say nobody, but 99.9% of people
Oh,
are
and if
going,
you think you're immune to it, is that ego?
right. That's problem. You want to be able to have that dash of humility to make you human, a
Oh,
palatable human. I had some imposter syndrome coming back. So my family, I'm originally from Orange County, California, which is like the county where Disneyland is. So I grew up in Newport Beach. And then after my husband and I got married, we were in this county for like 7 years. And then we moved to a neighboring county. And then we moved to Utah for 6 years where I met Heather. And then we just moved to California last summer because I missed my husband and I are both from Southern California and we just wanted to, you know, show our kids, remind them, like this is life in California. It's fun. And we were ready for a change. And I had imposter syndrome coming back home here because it's an expensive area. And there's a lot of people that have a lot of nice things or just the downsizing we had to do to move here. So our house in Utah is really big. And then we're renting it out and we're renting here. And the house that we can afford, it's a great house, but it's smaller. And so
mhm.
just that imposter syndrome, like, do I belong here? Like, I don't know. It's wild because it was when we
Yeah.
moved out of the county is when we bought our first house because we couldn't afford to like buy here. And so it was that kind of goodbye. I'll never be able to like live there. And then when we're coming back, it's like I'm here again, but I don't feel like I belong, which is sad. I've worked myself through it. I don't have that anymore, but I
Yeah.
think it's normal when you move somewhere. And I didn't grow up in this part of the county. So it's not like I can say, oh yeah, I went to the local high school. I think moving with imposter syndrome is a typical situation. You just feel like, do I belong here? I felt that
Yeah.
in Utah. I felt that in Utah because a lot of the
I
people in
felt like
Davis County grew up there. And I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't know anybody. I don't have friends of friends that went to different high schools and we all connected. Like, nope, not me.
so Camille and I are finding out how many people we both actually know didn't know we knew. It's kind of funny. And it's so Utah. It's so
Yeah.
Utah. We call it Small Lake City for a reason. Because I'm one of
I've
those grew up
actually never heard that before. Now I feel like an imposter even more. I never belonged.
Small Lake City. Yeah. I had imposter syndrome here. I did not realize when we bought this house, we're in Old Orland is what they call it. And it's like the first houses ever kind of built here after the like century homes. So like there's the century homes and then, we're in the 60s range. And like two neighborhoods over, they start at like 2 million. And I'm like, so does that mean we're the poor ones? Like like what does that mean? Like, where do I measure up? Like to give you an idea, Bo Jackson lives just like 3 miles away. And if you don't know who that is, he was a football player and a baseball player, big deal in the 90s. And he's just like a few streets over. So it's like it's weird because I don't see myself as like we're not in the same league. There's no comparison. And
You didn't play professional football? Oh my gosh. What?
I didn't even like
Oh,
it.
it's okay.
That's another imposter. I am not a sports. Utah doesn't have big sports. And here,
Well,
we
the
have
Jazz, but if you're not into basketball.
but we have the Bulls, we have the Cubs, we have the Sox, we have the
Yeah.
Bears, we have the Blackhawks. Like we have so many sports here.
Yes.
And I have like acclimated very well. I like it. But at first, you drive through and you see all these like sports flags, and I'm all, which one are we gonna hang up? And my husband said none of them. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm the West thing. Are we gonna fit in?
Yeah.
He's like, no, we don't need to do that. He just kind of laughed at me because I'm like working really hard to fit. And to him, he's like, well, I grew up on the north side. Now we're on the southwest side. He goes, so I don't fit either. I'm like, wait a second, there's that big of a difference. But apparently
Hmm.
I don't know any better. So
Yeah. I felt that way when we moved to Utah. I was trying to figure out how to fit because I knew there was going to be some culture shock because there's a lot, it's predominantly LDS religion, and that's my faith background. But I've never grown up where I've been in the majority. I've always been the minority in Southern California. So that's where I felt comfortable. And so I was trying to figure out how to fit when I moved to Utah. And I feel like maybe I tried too hard a little bit.
I don't know.
Um,
You have way more friends than me.
well, I don't know though. Let's just because of pickleball, but um,
That's how you fit in Utah is pickleball. It's a big
right.
deal.
Pickleball is a big deal where I live here too, though. It's yeah, it's actually a really big deal. But I think I tried a little bit too hard. That imposter syndrome was like talking to me too loudly, and I was trying to like maneuver so that I could fit in. And then coming here, I didn't have to do that as much because I am from the area, not the exact area, but it's just interesting. Like it's a very universal experience, imposter syndrome.
I have it with the moms at the elementary school. I kind of
Oh,
like feel so much of an outsider. So much of an outsider at the elementary.
because they're younger?
They all know each other. They all grew up
Oh,
together. Like
okay.
even my daughter's teacher went to that elementary school.
Oh, small town. That's how Utah felt to me. I was like,
Yeah. As a suburb of Chicago, it is everyone just kind of stays where they're at,
mm-hmm.
which I mean, that's how Utah is too. But
Yeah.
it is kind of weird because it was said to me very clearly, and I thought this was sad but brilliant. Everybody already has all their friends, but it's
That's
true.
that's how Utah was. I'm so sorry. I'm not no, I have friends in Utah, but it was like that for the first few years. Everybody was set and like, who are you? Like, oh great, nice to see you. But like,
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Lucky for me, one of my Utah friends lives around the corner, so I have a friend.
She moved there before you?
She's lived here, I think, 7 years longer than me.
Oh no way. That is so cool.
And she's really good at manifesting because she's all, you have to live by me. And if there wasn't some houses built where they are, I could literally see her house. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That is cool.
It was all her manifesting powers. She's really good.
Manifestation. Okay, I'm gonna read us a quote and pull it up on my phone. This is one of my absolute favorite quotes. You guys, when I discovered this quote, I think I was in high school and I have had it taped to my mirror in different houses multiple times. It's my mantra. Okay, ready? This was written by Marianne Williamson. She's an author and a philanthropist. And it's made famous by Nelson Mandela, who spoke it at he gave this quote at his inauguration. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? This is where it gets good. Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it is in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we
Mm,
are liberated from our fear, our presence automatically liberates others. It's pretty good, huh?
yeah. I think that sums up the whole reason we started this podcast.
Yes. Let's just
Yeah.
set ourselves free, talk about what we want to talk about, empower other women so that they can also feel like they have a supportive community that is behind them when they want to do their scary big things.
That is my dream of why we're doing this. Like have a community where everyone supports each other regardless of
Mm-hmm.
all the things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you have that almost like a sorority type environment.
But positive.
Yeah,
Not
yeah, I was
clicky,
going
no
to say
no
that.
hazing.
Yeah, but like the part where everybody lifts you up.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter what you look like, how much money you make, where you live, whether you had kids or not, you are held, you know, everyone holds each other in a
Right.
continuous.
So
So,
when she's speaking about our community, so if you want to go to our website, it's shethrivestribe.com. There is a button on the homepage to join the community. We have a Facebook group and we're going to be doing a challenge. We'll have more details on it later, but pick an area in your life where you want to see some growth, some improvement. It could be confidence, it could be parenting, it could be health, wellness, whatever. We'll talk about it later, but we're going to be doing a challenge in there where we can rally around each other, have goals, and everybody needs like friends that lift them up, right?
Yeah.
And both Heather and I have had online businesses that we've used social selling where we're on Facebook, we're creating communities already, and we've seen the positive impact of that.
A
We
lot
know
of,
how important. I mean, I had people from my Facebook community sending me baby gifts with my last kid, and his favorite blanket to this day, he calls it his DT, is from one of my customers.
nice.
Yeah.
I still see my former customers comment on each other's page and like, hey, I'll be in your city. Oh my gosh, let's go to brunch or and like that is so much more powerful to me than the product line I was.
How much you sold.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't even know the numbers I sold, but I know how many people are still in touch with each other and I love it. I love
Yes.
it.
Community is so important, and be from coming from somebody who has moved around quite a bit. Um, it's loneliness is an epidemic, you
Mhm.
know? And you can look at people and say, oh, she's got so many friends, she's got it covered. You don't know how people are really,
Yeah.
what's really going on. Sometimes people can be surrounded by people and yet they still feel lonely because they're not able to open up and talk about certain things, or they've got some challenge they're going through that they haven't shared with their friends. And so, whether you are somebody who's surrounded by people or you are kind of like a new girl and you're like, where do I fit in? And imposter syndrome is rearing its ugly head. Everybody needs community. Everybody needs a place where they feel like people have their backs and
Yeah.
it's a friendly atmosphere. And we were able to create that before. And so we're teaming up to create it again, but on the foundation of women's mental health, which we're
Yeah.
both so passionate about that we just read books, podcasts, like that's what we focus on. That's what it's a hobby for both of us. I don't
It's a
hate
lot.
me, but I rarely read fiction because nonfiction is so like exciting for me that I just don't have time.
Yeah. We brainstorm a lot about where we want to take this podcast, and we would love to hear what you guys want. What do you guys want to hear about? There was a moment when I was like, should we be doing this podcast? And then, of course, I go, yes, yes, we should. This needs to happen. It needed to happen 4 years ago when we thought up the idea the first time.
Yeah. Well, COVID.
Yeah. Wonder where we'd be if COVID didn't hit. My whole practice would be completely different if it didn't. COVID was awful and terrible, and we lost 8 family members from it. But it also grew a lot of things that work for me in the same. So it's a weird push-pull.
It also created more of a mental health crisis in the country,
Yeah.
which is
But
another reason why we're here.
also made it okay to say I'm not okay.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? Next week, I think we're going to address what's the plan?
The comparison trap, which really plays into imposter syndrome. It's like the sister of imposter
It
syndrome.
is.
Yeah.
It's the mean sister.
They're both like the wicked stepsisters on Cinderella. Giselda and Griselda or whatever.
Mean girls.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for being here. See you guys next time.
See you soon.